They're so pretty, aren't they? For anyone who's not familiar with these blooms, they're called snapdragons. And while I'm getting to enjoy these gorgeous flowers now, I am continuing to plant out more flower seedlings as well as edible crops. I've been quite busy over the last few days getting more things put out into my patch, especially in my small space area, which I cannot wait to show you. So please just sit back, relax for a few minutes and let's get into it now. The biggest change out here this week is my container garden. So a few days ago it was looking miserable. I had just left it be. I'd given up on watering it because a lot of the plants there were struggling anyway with the heat. So I completely cleared it out and here you go. It's ready for summer. There's a few plants in here which have already been growing in pots for a number of weeks, like these two bullhorn chilies and this California Wonder capsicum. So they were pretty easy just to pop up in this spot, but then with some of the other containers, or quite a number of them, I had to replenish the potting mix, and then I was able to pop in some of the seedlings which I've grown from seed and others which I have purchased. Remember I showed you those bargain plants last week? Well, I popped some of them in here too. When I purchase plants, I often leave the labels in the containers, but they don't need to be sticking up. You can just like bury them along the side, push them down and cover them with some of that sugarcane mulch. And then if I forget what they are, I can just do this quick reference. So here I've got a capsicum red. That was my $1 capsicum plant. And this one is my $1 jalapeno plant. What I've got going on here in this container is a bit of a gardening experiment. See, I've planted these two very close together. It's not the recommended spacing, which you can find on the back of the labels. I'm really curious to see how they both grow so close together and in a confined space of this container. They may not produce a huge amount of fruit. They also may be stunted in growth, potentially picking up some disease because there won't be great airflow. I don't know, I just want to see what happens, but I will try and look after them well. I may put a stake in to hold them up and kind of separate them slightly, and I'll probably have to add some additional nutrients because they will be quite limited to what's going on in here with the potting mix. But yeah, it's just a bit of fun. Well, it's my type of fun. Some people might think it's boring, but you know, this is stuff I love doing. My goal with this area when I was thinking about what to put in each pot was that I wanted to be an edible space where I can harvest for the kitchen, as well as it being pretty. I wanted to add some pops of colour, some flowers that can attract pollinators and bees, and you can't go wrong in summertime with some of these beautiful petunias. I love growing flowers that have this hot pink colour in summertime. Now these plants almost make an instant impact because they're a potted colour which I purchased from my local garden centre, but I do have other containers with petunias that are only little seedlings that I bought in 6-pack, like this one here. They have a lovely frilly petal, the double blooms. Now the one issue with these petunias compared to these more single flowering open face ones is that it's much easier for the pollinators to get in there, but with this one they're a little bit tricky. So if you want to attract more pollinators, I wouldn't really recommend this because of the petal shape and how difficult it is to get into the nectar and pollen. But you know, I'm compromising. I've got some for the bees and the pollinators, and then some up here that I'm gonna really love. They're so pretty. I grew them before and oh, they're just stunners. The way I have everything laid out here at the moment is probably not going to be the permanent spot for most of these pots. I just quickly did it yesterday and I just need to put a bit more thought into the layout of the containers. For example, over here in the corner I have this tomato plant which is right beside our electrical box, so I don't really want something climbing around that. I need to keep that area free, so I will move this container and maybe pop something in there which is a bit lower growing. Like I could swap it for this, which is a pot full of sweet basil, which won't grow as tall as the tomato, maybe about 40 centimeters. So if I just give them a bit of a switch, or this one completely out of the way. Well, the basil will just take up this space and leave the little electrical box alone. In here I also have a couple of eggplants. Now I'm not sure if this is the right one, but one of these eggplants is actually specifically for containers. Oh, here it is. I'm trying to find the label. Is it this one? Oh yeah, it is. Patio Baby. So it's a smaller variety of eggplant, and if you take a look in here, it only grows to 50 centimeters, whereas other varieties of eggplants can get quite tall. Like I've had some reach maybe 80 centimeters to a meter. So I think this one here will be very happy in a pot. And ooh, look at that, harvest in 6 weeks. Do you think I'll be harvesting in 6 weeks? If I take good care of it, hopefully I will. I've said this before, but I think it's definitely important to mention again. When you are growing in containers, try and buy the best quality potting mix that you can afford, because really what you put into here is what you'll get out of the plant. If you've got premium potting mix, which is what I have placed in these pots, I know that that's going to feed this plant really well and give it its best possible opportunity to thrive. And also, another point I've made many times, but important again, is always put drainage holes in your containers, especially the ones that don't come with the drainage holes like the standard black pots do. But just make sure with any other containers you use, you put the drainage holes in, because if you don't do that, you'll end up drowning the plants. Since I'm on a bit of a roll when it comes to tips for growing in containers, here's another one I wish someone had told me. When you're filling up your pot, don't fill the potting mix right up to the rim. If you put the potting mix right up to here, what tends to happen is when you're watering it, some of the water is wasted and trickles down the side. But if you leave maybe a couple of inches or maybe a bit more than that along here, you'll see when you water it, well, it won't just trickle off, it will have a chance to kind of soak through. Over here there's another eggplant in this spot, and I have tried to put some flowers around it. Like I have some marigold plants here which are a dwarf variety, they won't get very tall, and I might actually pop some down in this pot too, where I have another tomato plant growing, because marigolds are a good companion plant for tomatoes. Research has shown that marigolds help to protect tomato plants from root knot nematodes in the soil, and as well as that, they help to attract beneficial insects which will keep pests away from your tomatoes. Well, I still get pests on my tomatoes, but I guess every little bit helps, doesn't it, to try and get these plants to produce heaps and heaps of fruit. Here we've got a pot of dwarf calendula in a mix of different colours. Well, not that many. The yellow, the orange, and this one is a slightly, I guess, creamier colour, but still with those yellow tips. And calendula here in my area doesn't do too well in the heat, because the summertime can get extreme, like it could be over 40 degrees on a number of days. So I know this isn't going to be a plant that will last all summer here in this spot, but since I already had it in a container and it looks pretty, I thought I might as well make the most of it now and pop it over here to enjoy when I'm pottering around in my container garden. Here I've got some more marigolds. I can't quite remember the variety name of this one. I believe it's a French variety. I'll have to see if I can find the label when I sow those seeds. Up here there's a chili plant, and then I did splash out this week on what you see growing here in this container. Each of these plants cost me around $17 each, but I think it's going to be worth it. Got this lovely hot pink petunia, which is a spreading variety, so I'm hoping it will cascade down here. Oh, look at this. One of my favourite plants to grow is salvia. I love these plants. They're so drought tolerant. They do so well in my area, and I think the combination of the hot pink and the dark purple here will look really nice once this container fills out. As I had mentioned earlier, I will be moving around some containers, and I do have some more plants that I want to put in here, so I may end up moving a few because I feel like there needs to be a bit more of a balance between the flowers and edibles. Like, I really would love to have some dwarf zinnias in here because I just love them, and I bought some new varieties this summer that I'm excited to try out, so I think I might dedicate one of the pots to that. Like, I do have a bit of space here. I could put another pot in there and move that junk out of the way. And yeah, and I also want to put in, as Rob suggested, popping in some strawberry plants here on the side of containers and let them cascade down too. So I might head to the garden centre over the weekend and purchase a few of those plants so I can just like finish things off, and by next week hopefully it will be all done and I'll be able to show you the final result. I got a few areas in the garden planted out this week, one spot being these 2 raised beds which are full of zinnia seedlings. 12 seedlings in each bed. There's 3 rows of 4. I have planted them quite close together, but that's because I'm using these as cut flowers. Once these start to flower, I will be cutting them back quite harshly, and that's why I don't mind them being in such close proximity. So I don't expect each of these plants to really bush out due to the fact that I'll be cutting stems off them continuously, so they won't take up too much space, and hopefully they won't be like touching each other. They'll have plenty of airflow in these beds. I got these 2 zucchinis planted out. I swear they've doubled in size already. Zucchini plants are like that, they can grow really fast if the conditions are right. I grow these 2 varieties every year, so one of them is Gold Rush and the other is a Lebanese zucchini. I also got this patch planted out with some amaranthus seedlings. They're so small, they're kind of blending in with the soil, but you can see a couple of them here. And I'd say in this patch I've got maybe about 40 plants. And just quickly before I head off, I want to show you one last thing, which is my strawberry hanging basket. It's not actually hanging up at the moment. I do have to put it back up, but yeah, I wanted to show you how it's going. So I've got 2 strawberry plants here on top, and then I've got a few sticking out the side. Everything's looking nice and healthy. And if you remember, I did show you these hanging baskets a few months ago. I picked them up for free. They were in a recycle bin in a garden centre. I got about 4 of them, and yeah, I just want to show you how they are doing. I reckon it won't be too long until I get some strawberries, which is very exciting. And to save a bit of money, I used a potting mix bag as the liner, which does well. I got that tip from my mother, who was very frugal when she was gardening, or she still is gardening. Anyway, I will leave this be for the moment. I've got so many more plants and seedlings to pop out in the garden, but being that typical gardener in springtime when you can get a bit carried away, I just don't know where I'm going to put them all. I guess I'll figure something out. We always do, don't we? We squish them in and we find spots for them, and then we share a few too with our family and friends. So I guess everyone benefits. Anyway, I better head off. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next Friday.